after 3 girls were murdered by allegedly the son of immigrants from Rwanda. But last night there were much less of that, as thousands of counter-protesters held their own rallies demanding peace, many demanding even more immigration, which doesn't seem wise. But newspapers celebrated. Night anti-hate marches faced down the thugs. Thousands take to the streets to confront the far right. And good on them. And London's Metropolitan Police also celebrated an anti-racism protest, although did later admit, OK, there was one group of people not identified who were causing trouble, getting arrested, but that wasn't a protest, that was just pure antisocial behaviour. Well, yes, the cover-up continues because some people are now posting social media. These non-identified non-protesters they filmed were actually these people, crying Allahu Akbar and carrying weapons. Yes, let's pretend we didn't see them, didn't hear them, didn't notice they were Muslim, didn't notice how they left the streets looking like this. The only villains needed right now for the narrative are racist whites. Joining me from London is Patrick Christie's star presenter at GB News. Patrick, great to see you again. Look, fewer anti-immigration riots overnight, that's a good thing. But is that the end of the trouble? Is it all sorted now?
No, absolutely not. It's not sorted because nothing has been sorted. I mean, they were called counter-protesters last night. The fact is they were protesting against thin air. I mean, there are serious rumblings as to where this idea that there would be 100 far-right military-style protests across Britain even came from. I mean, there are rumours today doing the rounds that actually this was a bit of a hoax just to try to get people out onto the streets as a mobilised kind of anti-racist show of force. But they're not dealing with the core issue at play here. So an individual who was a hero, who tackled that alleged Southport stabber that you just mentioned there, and he was stabbed in the leg himself. He went on the BBC yesterday and he said he's dismayed at the way our Prime Minister is handling this because actually what he needs to do is cut immigration and not call everybody far right. Now, the latest polls show that 51% of people in Britain now think immigration is the top issue facing this country, and third is crime, OK? What are the Labour Party currently doing? They're ignoring immigration. They've decided now that they're also going to allow criminals and potentially terrorists to get on the social housing waiting list. They've scrapped the idea to have British homes for British workers, and they're simultaneously doing something called Operation Scatter, which is going to scatter asylum seekers all around the country. Those things are what are really underlying a lot of people, millions of people's dissatisfaction. If you don't deal with that, then you continue to get unrest. Obviously, not for a second justifying any of the proper, far-right action that we would see.
It's interesting, we just saw that footage of a group of men going down the street, some armed, yelling Allahu Akbar. Meanwhile, of course, the British Conservative Party, which got a hiding in the last election, is looking around for a new leader. One man has put his hand up, is Robert Jenrick, and he's actually said, Allahu Akbar, crying that out in the street like that should be a crime. I mean, should it? What's going on? That sounds a bit out there.
Well, I mean, the thing is, it's all about context, right? So if you're just saying it quietly in a mosque or whatever, then obviously, no, that shouldn't be a crime. But if you are shouting it as he's running through the street with knives, as we have seen on numerous different occasions in this country, or you're shouting it as a show of force and intimidation, like, unfortunately, again, we've seen in recent weeks, with gangs of Asian men with balaclavas holding weapons, running through towns in Britain, shouting and screaming it, then there is an intimidation there, isn't there? And there is a sense that it's a bit of a show of force. But I mean, it does also tie in, though, seriously, with this massive idea of two-tier policing that we've got going on at the moment, Andrew. And we're seeing now police officers addressing Muslim groups, saying "Salam alaikum" and thanking the elders in that community for allowing a police officer to have the opportunity to address British Muslim members. I'm sorry, but this is absolutely insane. And we have also had...
Let me just show viewers that. Let me show viewers exactly what you just mentioned, because I found it quite extraordinary to see. I mean, last night we ran footage of a top police officer saying he didn't send police to a violent Muslim protest because Muslim leaders had assured police it would be fine. And as you say, other police have been filmed pandering, like there's some sort of diplomats negotiating with representatives of another country. Have a look.
Salam alaikum. Good morning, everyone, and thank you to the leaders and elders that have afforded me this opportunity to speak to you personally.
Hello, salam alaikum. My name is Phil Hutchinson and I am the Superintendent for Greater Manchester Police based in Oldham.
Patrick, I find this extraordinary as you find it. But meanwhile, of course, as you say, the problems aren't going away. And I think they're being felt in many countries in Europe. That a lot of people feeling we've imported fresh threats that seem unprecedented, but they're not allowed to complain. This time, superstar Taylor Swift just cancelled 3 sold-out shows in Austria. Nearly 200,000 fans turned away, and that's because 2 Islamic State sympathisers were arrested for plotting an Islamist terror attack on one of those concerts, allegedly. Now, isn't this the kind of thing exactly that's stoking fear and resentment, and not just in Britain?
Yeah, 100%. Now, Taylor Swift is apparently due to play a couple of concerts back here in Britain in a few weeks' time, I believe. So it'll be interesting to see the police presence there. And yes, again, we will have to ask ourselves, won't we? What is it that the police are protecting us from? Why do we have bollards everywhere on the roads to stop a marauding car attack? Why is it now that we have massively increased airport security everywhere? What is the threat? Because people don't want to name it. But unfortunately, that threat is radical Islam, okay? It's not the Mormons, is it? We don't ever see that here in Britain. And people have to wake up to this. People are waking up to it. But people, Andrew, also don't like the idea that they're being lied to about this and told that they can't mention it, they're not allowed to be scared about it, and they're not allowed to confront it. And we have situations like we had in a place called Hartlepool in this country, where a Muslim asylum seeker who travelled through 13 different European countries to get here stabbed an elderly man who was walking his dog to death outside a migrant hotel. And we only found out about that when that case went to court, because they didn't want people to know in case it caused civil unrest. That's not dealing with the main cause of civil unrest.
Well, 2 things there. It's not doing that, Patrick. And the other thing it's doing is creating a suspicion that police are not telling the truth. They can't be trusted. Patrick Christie's, always good to talk to you. Thank you so much for your time. After the break, Barnaby Joyce, and a massive backtrack from one of our wokest companies. I think we're winning.
Hi, it's Gary Jubilant here. Do you want a real and raw look inside the world of crime? Well then check out my podcast, I Catch Killers, where I interview people from all sides of the law.
I draw my firearm and I went into fight mode. I wanted to find and confront this gunman.
I'm not getting verbal, am I?
I shouldn't have trusted you. See, I'm trying to open my mind up to defence powers.
I know, it's just begging to be said.
Yeah, fair call, fair call. We have amazing guests every week. Search for I Catch Killers wherever you get your podcasts.
But back to Anthony Albanese today, denying what the Reserve Bank actually admitted this week, that yes, the government's big spending is making inflation worse. Here's another quote from the Reserve Bank saying just that. Public demand, or government spending, is forecast to be stronger than previously expected, reflecting public spending announcements by federal and state governments. And here's the bank's chief economist this week on the consequences.
I just think the economy is running a little bit hotter than we thought previously. And as a result of that, we think it's going to take a little bit longer for inflation to get back to target.
Joining me every Thursday is Nationals frontbencher Barnaby Joyce, the former Deputy Prime Minister. Barnaby, great to see you. Who do we believe, the Reserve Bank or Anthony Albanese, who today said, no, our spending isn't making inflation worse?
Oh, Andrew, that's a tough one. That's a tough one. Do we believe the head of the Reserve Bank, a senior economist, a whole suite of senior economists, or do we believe someone who's been in politics all their life giving a political statement? A person, Dr. Jim Chalmers, doctor in political science, not a doctor in economics. I mean, of course, I'm torn, but I'm going to tip towards believing the Reserve Bank that if you tip a heap of money out there, it goes looking for a product, and if there's not enough product there, the price goes up. It's a simple issue of supply and demand. If it goes looking for more product than is what is actually available, which is what happens when you put public funds, which you borrow, into the economy, then prices will go up. But I tell you what's also incredibly important in those inflationary numbers, because that's what we're worried about, inflation, because it forces up interest rates, which makes you poorer because you have to pay more on your house payments. 6%, there was a 6% rise in power prices. And Dr. Jim Chalmers comes out and says, oh, but if we hadn't given you those subsidies, it would have been higher than 12. Well, hang on. That means your whole power policy, this lunacy of swindle factories, wind towers and photovoltaic cells covering that countryside black, it is out of control. Power prices are going through the roof, and that will be a fundamental driver of inflation, because those power prices, not only do you pay them, but on every product that's produced in Australia, they pay them, and it pushes up prices. It's, we are in a form of economics now with the swindle factories, the solar panels and green hydrogen, which went upside down, and solar panels, which has now fallen over, and, wind towers and solar panels, it's all gone mad. This would make Timothy Leary blush. It really would. He would pop a pill and go, oh no, that can't be happening in Australia. Well, it is.
Let's not forget, Barnaby, the compensation that the government's offering for only 1 year for the higher power prices is in fact coming from your own pocket. So, you're going to have to pay it back. Meanwhile, Glencore...
Here's money. Well, hang on. It's my money. You're giving me back my money. It's Anthony's money.
Just ignore that we
Jim's
your
money.
pocket to
That's
pay
my
you.
money. You're giving me back my own money.
I know. Oh, my God. I'd like to have trailed these guys around when they go shopping, just reach into the till and then pay the shopkeeper the money they just stole. See, I paid for my groceries. Meanwhile, Glencore, very woke company, has been forced, Barnaby, by shareholder revolt, to scrap its woke plans to sell off its very profitable coal mining operations. The shareholders have loved the dividends. 95% of them said, don't sell this off. What are you saying? Now, Glencore explained this backflip was in part due, I love this bit, in part due to evolving views on environmental, social and governance. Translate that for us, Barnaby.
No. What this means is one of the greatest returns you could get on the stock market were coal companies, because the demand for it is going up, the usage of it is going up, and we produce coal. But back into the Timothy Leary economics of Australia, we're saying, no, not only must we have swindle factories and paint the fields photovoltaic black and have a crack of green hydrogen which falls over, subsidise solar panels which China produces cheaper, and that's falling over. We must shut down the actual thing that makes us money, which is the coal mines and the gas mines. We shut them down so we can be poor. Because that's obviously the goal. Now, what happens with shareholders, with people who say, when I retire, I want my super fund to make as much money as possible because I want to be comfortable, I don't want to be poor. And they say, well, where's the best return? And they say, well, it's in coal mines. Oh, no, hang on. It's funny, it's funny how people's judgment changes. As my father used to say, when poverty walks in the door, love flies out the window, right? So what is happening here is people saying, I don't care too much. If coal is where the money's made, brother, you go and invest in the coal because I need the cash to retire on.
Correct. Well, that's the other aspect of Glencore's decision, of course. They're betting that, of course, we can't get rid of coal in the next several decades like Labor wants. Of course we'll still need it, and there's a future in it. That's what it's saying. China, meanwhile, I mentioned at the top of the show, Barnaby, that China's... Well, I just want to get to this before we run out of time, because China has nearly finished building Linglong, with a lovely name, the world's first land-based commercial small modular nuclear reactor. When Chris Bone was telling us, they haven't been invented yet, it's a pipe dream and all that. What do you make of this announcement by China?
Oh, no, that's a lie. That can't be happening, Andrew. That's not possible. Because I've listened to Chris. I listened to Chris at the dispatch box. He always has a nice tight shirt and a colourful tie. He dances and prances around it. And he says they're not happening. He says they're just not going to happen, right? And so I believe Chris. I believe Chris because Chris is very, very believable.
Communist propaganda. That's all it is.
What's going to happen is they're going to be producing small modular reactors. Poor old Australia, knuckle draggers. We won't be in the nuclear industry. It'll make hundreds of billions of dollars into the future. High paying jobs, high